Okay, so hello, you're welcome to the final edition of, you're welcome to another edition of ACA Industry Conversations, where we're talking to music professionals from all around Africa. My name is Adebayo Adegbite. I'm a content strategist at the ACA Secretariat, and it's been a fun experience with everybody who has watched or followed this series. And then today we've had conversations with people from South Africa, from East Africa, from West Africa. Now we're moving to North Africa. And then we're talking to Ignacio Priego, right? Yeah, okay. So Ignacio, it's nice to have you around. Thanks for joining this, and we hope to have a very, very interesting and insightful conversation. So let's get into it as quickly as possible. So the first question I'm going to be asking is, it's a question that I've asked repeatedly from all the other people who are featured on the what do you call it? So we're talking about the touring circuit in North Africa. How has that been? So, we've got insights from South Africa, from West Africa, from East Africa, and very interesting ones too. So what do you think, as someone who has lived in Egypt, what do you think the touring circuit in North Africa is like from a music business professional perspective?
Thank you very much for your question, Adebayo, and hello to you and to our listeners. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you talking today about this topic that, it's both my passion and my life, I would say. Just a comment. Of course, I'm aware about the other conversations you've led on with ACA members, and yeah, I think that it's been great to hear from colleagues from Southern Africa, from Dan Cherboli, from Josh Georgiou, then from West Africa, from Dudu and the others. No, that if, in my case, I am humbled for the invitation to speak mostly from a North Africa perspective. However, let me say that I was hoping our friend and colleague Brahim El Masnet, director of Visa for Music, where, by the way, ACA will be having its third annual meeting in this coming November. Brahim would be much better suited to speak about the North African circuits because me, myself, very briefly, yes, true, I've lived in Egypt 4 years. And I've worked and traveled in other North African countries, including, for example, Morocco, and this Visa for Music showcase event. However, I've lived in South Africa before, worked mostly in Southern Africa, and currently I live in West Africa. Having said this, I think that probably provides me a kind of iBird's view, of what's happening around, and I'm definitely very happy to engage mostly around North Africa and how it compares, to the other regions. So that having said that, Adebayo, let me kind of give you a shorter answer, but definitely the trend, I think it's there out. And and very well known by most people, not only the continent, which is Afrobeats and Amapiano, that are definitely, let's say, rocking the world, not only the continent, but across continents. However, once an piano in general, let's say, of African music, how it relates and touring, both with visiting tours and also the other way around, export of tours from African artists towards other regions. North Africa specifically, we could say that it has only one leg of its two legs sitting on the this Afrobeats and Amapiano success all around the world, because it's let's say cultural specificity compared to, let's say, the so-called sub-Saharan Africa, would put it in a kind of more outside, a bit outside of this trend, probably closer to its natural cultural cousins, which sit more in the what is used to be called Middle East, now called the Swana region, Southwest and North Africa region. But definitely, and again, coming back to the example of Visa for Music, but that we could also bring others, like Southeast Abu Sara Festival in Zanzibar, Tanzania. There is definitely an effort. There's been a long time effort towards going beyond these separations, these divisions, and when one travels, and goes to an event, any of these kind of events, Southeast Abu Sara in Tanzania, Visa for Music in Morocco. One I mean, myself, I've been very happy to see a program of artists that goes beyond language barriers, religious barriers, even what could say post-racial or ethnic barriers, and that's beautiful to see. However, this I would say is not a trend yet. This kind of trying to have a bit more, I would say, less separation, a bit more unity, is not there in the agenda. What is there? Coming back to your question about the trends, is definitely the that kind of interest that African music in general attracts, but that we would need to separate it again in two aspects. One would be the more commercial side, no? I mean, your big artists, of Afrobeats, your Burna Boy, that definitely tours internationally and tours in the continent. And then, like many of the big Amapiano stars from mostly South Africa. But then what we have, which is also very, I would say, it's also trending, is the less commercial genres or approaches to music, out to African music that it might be less danceable, might be less, I don't know, rhythmic,
Yes.
and definitely less. I don't know if I would say they definitely have a bit more layers, no? And for example, in East Africa, has led a move, let's say a movement, through Yege Yege. I think it was talked in the recently one of your conversations, and that there's one kind that has sparked a bigger interest, that has examples all around in North Africa, definitely in Egypt, where there is a lot of, let's say, experimentation around music, and not and in a kind of very open way, and also in West Africa with approaches like Ibaku, that is definitely very, very interesting, and all across the continent. Let me mention that last year I produced myself a couple of festivals in South Africa and in Germany that were definitely more around experimental music, that comes and that is connected to Africa. Both, I mean, that can be electronic or can be even performed by orchestras or with traditional instruments. So I think that needs to be mentioned, because that, although it goes, let's say, in the less in the news, but it's definitely a movement happening there, no, in the kind of experimental and more creative side.
Oh, okay. So, well, thank you very much for that. Now, I'm happy that you mentioned Brian and the Visa for Music Festival that we've talked about. And that will actually lead me to the next question I want to ask you. So, music festivals. So, what do you think music festivals, what impact from your experience producing festivals? So, what impact do you think it can have on African music? Now, we're using Morocco as a model with the work of people like Brahim and the work they've done in that area. So, how do you think that will, what kind of effect do you think that will have on African music? You know, music festivals, especially on using the Morocco model as an example. So, what impact do you think that will have?
Definitely. No, thank you for that question, Adebayo, because well, you've talked already with some the, let's say, leading and most senior professionals that one can find in the continent that work around live music for decades, and with the biggest artists and stars in many capacities, and some of them definitely leading festivals. And I mean, there are definitely certain, I mean, we've mentioned Sauti Abu Sara in Tanzania, that is already it's in its second generation of directors, or Visa for Music, that is more a showcase event, more a professional meeting and market, rather than a more, let's say, commercial or audience festival. But what is the connection between both of these events, or WOMAT in South Africa from Dan Cherboli, or many others, no, than what can find in the continent, is that they definitely play a pivotal role in that kind of support and gathering information and knowledge about what's happening around. That curation, that, for example, they all run calls for applications for artists to perform. So already, I mean, and that's, I think the people might not be aware of the interest that generates from, for example, South African bands to go to Morocco, or bands from West Africa to go to Zanzibar on the other side. And because these festivals, their directors and their teams really spent a lot of time in listening to music, in going around the continent, watching these bands live, and then trying to invite the ones that are working harder on that year, or that are really putting out some great music. And that is, as we say, it's that then what the effect of that is multiple, because of course we have all those programs, those posters, we see them on social media, and we see bands that we know and bands that we don't know, from a, let's say, audience perspective, and all the attendees that go there see them live. But although there might not be definitely the majority, but many of those attendees are also bookers, managers, and programmers in other markets. And thanks to the coming to these events in the continent, that's where they then can scout and see the artists that they are wanting to offer contracts or to offer opportunities and tours in other regions. So festivals in Africa play that important role from that kind of market development perspective. Secondly, I need to mention that they also play a very important role from a, let's say, a tour management perspective. Why? Because normally we're having a festival opportunity, a gig, to play at a festival, is what
Yes.
we can call an anchor gig, because it's normally it's let's say, big opportunities, not just going to the capital to another country, but just going to a small club that probably that cannot justify or even pay for the tour. However, a festival gig is normally better resourced, and it definitely involves more mobilization of resources. When you have that festival gig, that allows you to try to put together an actual tour, on your way there to that gig, on your way back around the region of the festival, or even in the neighboring countries. I worked for some time in a tour support mechanism in South Africa. We supported 200 tours, and festival gigs play that pivotal role, even if they don't. I mean, normally they are better resourced, maybe whether the fee, whether the accommodation, whether the etc. No, they cover for you certain costs that then you can try to just broaden, and that definitely is very important for independent artists, and and those that are trying to make it out there. So festivals, that's why from here, they deserve a lot of support, not only from audiences, but from funders and from public authorities. So we thank those who are supporting music festivals around the continent.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you again. That was pretty insightful. Very interesting. Now, we're still talking about festivals, and we're talking about Morocco because, of course, Brahim is pretty much like the poster child for, and the Moroccan government is poster child for leading the way as to music festivals and, creating networks in Africa. Okay, so the question I want to ask is now, looking at the government of Morocco, they pretty much made it a free for all in terms of festivals in the country. So what roles do you think, using the Morocco as a role model and with your own experience, what roles do you think government should be playing in the development of strong touring networks and creative industries in Africa. And then now we're not just talking about Morocco, now we're talking about, since we're talking about the ACA as a network. So what roles do you think the governments of African countries should be playing, as perhaps as individual governments and perhaps as the African Union and all that? So what do you think about that? What roles do you think the government can play to aid the development of the music industry in Africa?
Definitely, definitely. That's a key question, for because without that, I mean, the private sector definitely thrives. From time to time, sometimes it suffers. I mean, we are still recovering from COVID, and especially in those, as we were saying, sector. However, the role of the government, first of course, it's something that goes that needs to be broken down, no, in multiple aspects. Because one needs to go from, let's say, from department or minister to ministry to ministry, and see how they can engage in this. Because this is not just definitely not the, let's say, Department of Culture or Arts and Culture, or however it's called it in each country. Normally it involves, if not all, most of the others. I mean, there is, for example, in general, in the African continent, there is an issue around infrastructure, an infrastructure that can be specific, thinking about music and events. We can talk about arenas, we can talk about the investment to build those, the bigger ones, and how the government needs to uh, pave the way for the private sector to invest, and for the music sector to provide the technical expertise, and to the creative sector in general to work in partnership with investors and public sector. So that we could definitely break it down, how it goes from the local government and the role of community arts in developing audiences for music, and developing, of course, music education, and that is related to the role of the government, not only through the Department of Education, but, as we say, in a kind of much more broader way. But coming back to more, I mean, trying to focus on my reply, there would be a very important role to play around visas in the continent. There are some examples of regional collaboration. In the SADC region, Southern Africa Development Community, there is no shared passport, but at least citizens from member countries can travel freely, and that, of course, is really important for touring musicians. That should be, let's say, a kind of something that should be replicated, or even taken beyond in the whole continent. There have been, of course, talks about possible African passports from from the African Union. However, here we are talking, even if we don't go to that, there can be, there could be further collaboration within maybe the African Union. Or ministers of culture could definitely exempt visas for touring artists in general from the performing arts
Yeah,
and
yeah.
music. That it would be a very important one for the intra-African touring. There are definitely other very important roles that the government can lead, and speak to. One, for example, music venues in general, places where music is played, whether they are cultural centers, artistic hubs, or heritage or historical spaces that should be supported as spaces that where music is, let's say, created, bred, produced from a, let's say, more roots perspective, and that should be taken further through the value chain towards the more in a professionalization of the sector. So what are the, let's say, incentives through taxation and through labor legislation for creative businesses? Whether we are talking in the case of like music, for promoters, for managers, for booking agents, or for booking agencies themselves. So given the level of risk that exists in our sector, that normally that detracts investment, the public sector government should make it a bit easier for us. It's not a matter of of providing money and funds, just definitely not. We are
Yeah.
talking is to have a specific legislation that makes our life easier. We mentioned the one for touring in the continent. We are talking now about easier, a more specific labor and tax legislation for creators.
Okay. So yeah, thank you
Those are
very
two
much.
examples, and we could definitely bring up many more that should also be adapted to the specifics of each region. So coming back to Morocco, just with this I finish. Definitely, Morocco, for example, has a lot of pull on tourism from Europe. So that makes it easier for them to make it a free-for-all in terms of music festivals, because they are not making it for local audiences. Because that is
Yeah.
also that
Yeah, that's true.
when I
Yes.
was speaking before about the role of government, I want to stress the importance of local audiences, because in general in the continent there is less disposable income and lesser, let's say, that there is a less weight of the middle class that has money to go out on weekends
The
and pay
concerts,
for a
yes.
concert, whether it's a upcoming artist or a international visiting artist. So that really needs a lot of unpack that maybe we could take it on further ACA conversations. Adebayo, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Because I actually find what you said about disposable income interesting. Because I think Duduza mentioned it when I did the interview for West Africa. Yeah, the disposable income issue. So now, okay, so let's from there we'll go to now we've talked about the government. Now let's talk about the ACA itself that you're a member of. So sans the government, like minus the government now, the ACA is trying to sort of build a structure of connect professionals. So how important do you think networks like this, networks like the ACA, how important do you think or what do you think they can do, or how important do you think they are in the scheme of building like a strong, making social impact, because I know that's actually one of the goals of the ACA to make economic and social impact and education. So how important do you think networks like the ACA are in the scheme of, building like that strong, making that kind of strong impact in Africa? Okay. Yeah, I think you're muted.
We are back.
Oh, okay.
We are back. I think you should just finish your question, but that you were the role of networks and the importance of networks like ACA.
Yes, that's the question, basically. Yeah, that's the question, role and importance of ACA.
Cool. No, thank you for that, Adebayo. I'm sorry for the technical hiccup. It's yeah. I'm not born in Africa, not an African myself. I'm Spaniard. I'm actually
Yeah.
talking now from Madrid, although I have been working and living in a number of African countries for the last 15 years, which is more than
I
half
mean,
of my
that's
professional
that's
life.
pretty good enough. That's pretty
Yeah,
pretty African enough if you think
right,
about it.
right. Thank you for that. But definitely, I mean, I mentioned this because during this time that I've been working within the arts and culture sector, first, more broadly, but then lately, all specifically on music, and I've seen uh, grow, let's say, appear, grow, flourish, and in some cases, a number of African networks related to the creative arts and culture sector. Even those that may not be happening now, they definitely played in some cases, in most cases, an important role, and it was a pity losing them. In the case of ACA, I think there is definitely one key element that then has, let's say, taken us further and grow in other ways that also we hope we are having and we will continue having even a bigger impact. But what I mentioned is that this network was created under the need to connect promoters from people involved in live music in different African countries that maybe knew each other individually and were in many cases have worked together or worked together from time to time or regularly,
Yeah.
but not from a let's say a fully connected way and perspective. And that, of course, is not because people don't want to, it's because there are certain challenges that are very difficult to overcome, not only if you are alone, but even if you are working, bilaterally in a duo or so. What I'm referring is the difficulty to put together African tours, whether it's only a region or whether it's in the continent. Happily enough, there are examples every year, multiple, both from African artists living in the continent, African artists from the diaspora that visit the continent, and also international artists, especially, I don't know, for example, Jamaican, or American
Americans, yeah.
pop, soul, hip hop stars, whatever. But there is definitely a huge disconnection between the markets, where the live music markets in the continent that have divisions that are geographic, of course, as we've said before,
Yes.
that are also linguistic, that are also cultural, as we spoke at the beginning with North Africa, etc. So that is something that even makes more heroic the work of people that we
Yes,
mentioned earlier
yes.
that have kept their events going on and with a kind of very clear idea about what they wanted to do. But ACA, what is definitely has allowed is to for us to meet regularly, to know other people, to put together collaborative projects, and not only within the continent, but even with regions like Latin America that have a huge African diaspora community, and that we have, let's say, a sister network of live music promoters there. And definitely the importance of networks, of the ACA network, as I have now unpacked, has been already key for let's say the private sector itself, but then what we are definitely hoping is that through the expansion of the network itself, the growth of the members and of the resources, uh, we actually can make this happen, and see it grow in a
Yes.
way that can be more similar to how what I am seeing, for example, now, as I was saying, it's August in Spain. You cannot count the amount of festivals that you have here, every day,
Yes.
and that means that there are a lot of artists are playing every day, and they are making money every day. That does not happen all the year. That is, there is a festival circuit that starts in late May, June, until the end of August, early September. So that needs to be
Yeah.
articulated. The people, the that is kind of thriving and rich and diverse music circuit in the continent that can be, as we say, this is like an onion. There need to be national, provincial circuits, national circuits, regional, and some artists go beyond that. No, so we hope that in all these layers the strengthening continues happening, and we hope to be there to support it.
Well, so that I think it's been a very, very wonderful time with you, Ignacio. You've actually been very, very helpful, and I appreciate your time. And it's been a very wonderful session with you. Very, very insightful. I'm sure that the people who are going to follow it are going to have like a lot of insights to gain. So thank you very much for Ignacio for coming in. The notice was a bit short, but we appreciate you for coming and the insights you've given us. I will be able to, of course, make very good use of it. So it's been Ignacio Priego, festival events, music festival promoter, and a music professional. So once again, thank you very much for coming. And my name is
Thank you very
Adebayo.
much, Adebayo.
Yeah, so my name is Adebayo Adegbite. Once again, I'm the content strategist at Crowd ACA, and this is the ACA Industry Conversations, where we've been bringing the activities of the ACA and building a strong touring circuit in African music. So thank you very much. We appreciate you for coming. See you around. I hope we do have a longer conversation than this on this topic at some point. So I'll certainly be looking forward to it. So do take care of yourself. Do have a nice day.